Welcome to The Brain Factor, hosted by myself, Joy Riddle, and Laura Hawley. We're a part of Meridian Behavioral Healthcare, where we believe that wellness is within everyone's reach. This podcast is a conversation about what research-based protective factors look like in real life. Our hope is that you'll walk away with something that you can use in your own life and have had some fun with us along the way. So let's get started.
Hello and welcome to The Brain Factor. My name is Laura and this is Joy, and we are here again today with you to unpack a new topic. So today I want to talk about something that's been kind of floating around as maybe a buzz phrase. I don't mean that with a negative connotation, but it's kind of newer.
It's a new word new words that are making their way into our language.
Absolutely. And I'm hearing a lot about this concept of enoughness. Being enough as a person, or a situation being enough, or a thing being enough. And I got to be honest with you, when I first started hearing this, it felt a little woo-woo to me. It was
a little bit of a sell when you brought it up to me, too. I was like,
You're like, do we really want to talk about this? And I kind of rolled my eyes at it, and I kind of thought, like, this is sort of a new age Gen Z, Gen Alpha sort of situation, right? And it didn't resonate with me. And then I realized that more and more people that I respected and paid attention to in the wellness and self-care space were using this term and were talking about this concept. And then I realized that the reason I was rolling my eyes on it is because I was sort of part of the problem. Stigmatizing.
Isn't that how it usually happens?
I was like, oh, they're talking about me.
Here comes the Gen Xer.
All the things that are stigmatizing about it. That's why it didn't resonate with me until I really understood what it was. So jump in. Like, where are you with it? You said it was a sell when I brought it up. So how are you feeling about this topic at this point?
I think
you looked into it a little bit.
I did. I did. And I think at its core, I just thought, here are some more kind of buzzwords or things that we're saying differently now, when it really boils down in my mind to how do I feel about myself?
Okay.
Do I like myself?
Right.
Am I good enough, or am I not good enough? Am I always evaluating myself?
Yeah. And am I confident in bringing that to the table and saying this is enough?
And do I care what you think about me?
Right. Can I get to that place where your opinion of me is not my business?
I am me. This is who I am. I mean, I get more like that with age.
Sure.
Definitely when I was younger, a teenager, young 20, trying to fit into things. Yes. Now I'm like, whatever.
So here's what actually, and I'm glad you said that, because here's what I find very cool about this concept of enoughness. And I promise I'm going to fully define it here in a second. We've gotten kind of off on a tangent. But I feel like the way we've always defined this, the way it resonates with us, is that it comes with the comfort of being in your own skin. That comes with age. It comes with wisdom, experience. I'm seeing Gen Zs and Gen Alphas even. That's 11 and 12-year-olds in the Alpha generation. They're built different, by the way. And young adults that are embracing this concept that normally came, after 40, when you no longer care what people think of you. Right?
Well, I always say the millennials, after they're winning.
They figured a lot of this stuff out.
They win
without pain. But so the concept of enoughness is, and I heard it described when I started really paying attention to it, is when I heard it described as the ultimate act of sociological and cultural defiance. And there's this tiny little rebel inside of me that really spoke to her, and so I said, I have to learn more about this. And what it boils down to is, in this society that values moreness, right? Improvement and getting more stuff, better and improvement. Then being content with anything other than affluence becomes stigmatized as having laziness or lack of motivation or lack of drive or any of these other values that we hold in high esteem that speak to productivity and speak to bettering ourselves and all of that. So because of that, then having less and being less become intertwined.
Yeah.
And it creates this divisiveness that makes us envious of people who have more, and then sort of judgmental and negative and even suspicious of people who are content with and or have less.
But then there's this whole category of like entrepreneurs who are getting rid of all their stuff and living awesome lives in vans.
Right?
They're like,
van
no,
culture.
this is
Yes,
it. This
yes,
is
yeah.
all I need. Or
Yeah.
in a tiny house. Or
Yeah,
let me just,
and
they say it's freeing to get rid of everything.
Sure. And I think, there's probably some concepts or feelings or thoughts of enoughness involved in that greater practice. But for me, I feel like that's something different, right? Because enoughness is not defined as having less or getting rid of worldly possessions or reducing anything.
It's minimalism.
And it's not defined as having more or improving. It's just this idea of wherever I am, if I'm in a mansion with everything that I could possibly want, if I'm in a van with everything I own can fit in a knapsack.
Well, I was thinking of it as that rebellion.
Well, it's a rebellion against a societal idea,
Right.
not a rebellion against worldly possessions or a rebellion against a socioeconomic class. It's a rebellion against the idea of no matter where I am, again, in a mansion or in a van, that I'm supposed to yearn to improve, that I'm supposed to yearn to want more things or want more stuff or be better, that I can still do those things in this concept of enoughness. I can still, like in my own life, okay?
Yeah.
I would like to get my PhD. I am looking into the feasibility of that at my age and with my family and in my job, but I also feel like my education level is enough. I'm okay.
You have a master's degree.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm okay where I am.
Right.
It's enough. I'm satisfied with that. I don't feel less than. I don't feel inadequate, but I would also like to get my PhD. So a desire for more can exist with enoughness. And that's, to me, what I find really fascinating. So it's not this whole, I'm rebelling against improvement or I'm rebelling against more things. I'm rebelling against the idea that I'm not enough because I don't have those things.
Right.
Right. And an analogy I shared with you right before we started rolling, but that resonated with me when I was learning about this is this like a meal. Okay. Let's say somebody cooks you dinner and the meal is fine. The flavors are good. The quality is good. The portions are enough. You're satiated. It's enough. Right? Is there potential for that meal to be better? Sure. No one said it was restaurant quality or the best thing you've ever tasted, and the recipe can improve, and you might have that same dish 6 months later and it's better. But at the time, it was enough, right? And what I love about that analogy is it leaves room to sort of combat the incorrect idea, the myth about enoughness, that it's really about anything being enough, right? Like being grateful for what you have and being happy in your situation, even if it's not adequate. And that's not what enoughness is. You can evaluate a situation, a thing, or yourself for enoughness and find that it's not, right? That's allowed in this concept. But that it's just not linked to potential, I think is really what resonated with me.
The disconnect there. Yeah. So it's not potential, it's just what I want.
Sure. Yeah. It's
You
like
clearly have the potential to go get your PhD if you want to.
And I could decide that I want to do that, and I'm looking into that, and it's something I would enjoy and I would like to have and would benefit me. But it is not required in order for me to be enough.
It is not. I considered the same at some point, but there was no real reason. It wasn't going to benefit me professionally. I have everything I need for my credentials, but I kind of wanted to have the PhD.
Just to have
the doctor.
Right?
Yeah. It's like, well, that's a stupid reason to spend $50,000.
Right. And I feel like,
but I enjoy learning and the process of learning.
Right.
So it wasn't just
that.
Just I'm not really like this giant jerk.
Mine might just be vanity, to be honest. I might be that kind of jerk.
You just might be vain enough.
I'm still trying to figure that out. That's why I haven't done it yet. But and I do think this begs the question. I'm going to sound like I'm contradicting myself now, but I think it's an important part of the conversation. As much as enoughness is resonating with me, here we are talking about PhDs. Are we speaking about enoughness from a place of privilege? That's entirely possible.
That is entirely possible.
And then we go back to like, is this something that comes with age, and is this, where's the enough line for you? Because I'm looking at, I have a teenager who has absolutely nothing in life unless I give it to her. Right. She has no awareness of that. She lives in a completely different socioeconomic class than me. But, she's going around preaching enoughness and feeling enoughness and understanding that concept and feeling like she's enough. And that's what fascinates me.
Well, she's kind of an enlightened kid. In my opinion.
But it does fascinate me because if at 15, when you are going to get more and do more and improve and have more education and more experiences and more money, and that's the path you're on an upward path, and still feeling like in this moment for who I am and what I am and in the spaces I'm showing up in, I'm enough. I think that's powerful.
That is powerful. I didn't know anything at 15.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
I knew everything at 15.
Well, yes, there is that. But in hindsight, I knew nothing. Absolutely. I didn't know where my life was going to go. I didn't have a plan at 15 years old.
Right. But imagine too, and that begs the question too, imagine particularly, and I don't mean to narrow this to just women, because this is a concept for everyone, but we're women, right? So, begs the question, but to speak to that. But imagine if, as young women, as girls, we bought into this concept of enoughness.
Yeah.
On our last episode, we talked about trauma. How much of that would be minimized, right? The impact of that, if fundamentally, what impact does that have on resilience? If fundamentally we believe that we are enough.
Yeah. That would be pretty awesome. As I sit here now, I'm like, do I think I'm enough?
Yeah, it depends on the day for me.
Yeah.
I'm a work in progress.
Yeah. I always tell, we've talked before about how a running joke in my house is, if I only had a perfect mom, because I'll get so frustrated if they'll be like, oh, did you make this? I'm like, oh no, I didn't make that. Oh my God. And I'll just have a meltdown because I wasn't enough. I wasn't perfect enough.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a really good example, because if you look at the job you did as a mother, right? You have really great, successful, well-adjusted adult children who you have a good relationship with. Were you perfect? No, no one is, right?
Far from it.
Were you enough?
Apparently.
Yeah. Apparently,
I guess.
Right?
Yeah.
See how uncomfortable
I have to ask
it is?
my kids.
But you see how uncomfortable it is to even say, yes, I was enough?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. That is uncomfortable. Because there's so many things that I live in regret about that I didn't do. Or, like, I love to travel now, but I couldn't do that when my kids were younger. And it, kills me every time I go on a trip.
So I didn't provide this for them.
Yes.
Was I enough?
How dare I do it now?
Right.
I'm not worthy of it.
Yeah, but and I think that's such a great example of how, was there potential to do more? Sure. Yeah. Right. But were you enough? Yes. Was their childhood enough? Seems to be. They've done well, right? I think that's a really important thing to look at in the areas where
that's
we
a different
feel
lens.
Inadequate.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go home and call my kids, my daughter's actually sitting here in the
she's
studio.
over there on the
other side of the producer, watching us today. Was I enough? Because even if they'll be like, "You're such a good mom," I'm like, who are you talking to? Like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah. And I think parenting is such a great example of how to wrap our head around this concept, because you'd be hard pressed to find another environment where there's less comparison. Yeah. Right? We are constantly, and it's not just us, I have a teenager. I hear all the time, well, so-and-so's mom, right? There's comparison constantly, particularly in the mommy space, right? There's a lot of comparison. Yeah. And that's what I find so liberating and freeing about the idea of enoughness, is that it eliminates comparison. It's really just about, is this enough for the function it was supposed to have, for the thing for the space it was supposed supposed to fill?
Yeah.
Right. And therefore, am I enough for the space that I'm supposed to fill? And potential aside, and improvement possibilities aside, and how I compare to anyone else aside.
Yeah.
Am I enough?
Well, that's the comparison thing. That's where I think we lose traction. I'm thinking about something, or I think I said right before we started, you ever get, just to bring it into very simple terms, Laura will probably tell me, no, that's too simple, knock it off. But you get dressed and you get ready and you pick all your things out and you do your hair and your makeup, or, if you're a guy, you get your suit jacket on or whatever it is, shave, whatever you guys do. And you're like, I'm feeling pretty good, looking good. And then you get out to wherever you were going, whether it was, the bar or restaurant or hanging out with the mean moms or anything, and all of a sudden you're comparing
it's like a whole other
yourself.
podcast episode.
It's Wednesdays, we got to get our pink out. But all of a sudden you're feeling not good.
Right. I was enough at home
shoes,
looking in my
look
mirror.
at those shoes. Oh, mine are terrible.
Mine are not enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's spot on. I mean, it's simplified and yet spot on, because enoughness existed until comparison, right? And that's, and I think, being able to create that pause to, how do we use this, right? That's one of the things we always like to come back to. How do we use this? Understanding what the concept is and what it isn't, being able to create that pause in those moments before we are being faced with the pressure to improve or the comparison that's inevitably going to come. To use the simplified example, in that moment before I leave the house,
right,
to look in the mirror and say, I put care and effort into choosing my outfit, into my appearance. It is enough. I am enough. This is regardless of what anybody else brings to the table. In this silo here, I am enough, right? May minimize the effects of those negative emotions and feelings that we have when comparison enters the picture. And we arrive and she has designer shoes and I don't, right?
Yeah, or I'm sitting here lusting after your new glasses. I'm like, dang, I bought ones recently and those are really awesome. So now mine aren't enough. Now I thought they were great.
They were great, yes, and they are enough, right? And so that's, these are all really good examples of how this shows up in everyday life, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that you're not going to see something and suddenly decide you do want to upgrade your glasses, or I might want to get that PhD, or I might want to, but it's not so that I'm enough.
Right. It's just because it's what you want to do.
Just right. So I think it also frees us up to make better, more pure, more authentic choices that are for the right reasons, and that are, not rooted in some feeling like we have to in order to be enough.
Yeah. So when I was looking into this, I brought it up in our pre-roll, but the pressure or the desire to conform is rooted in our biology.
Yes.
We needed it early on because I think the example I said was, if I get outside of my group, a pterodactyl will come and get me.
Yes.
And there's no more pterodactyls.
There are not. We are at the top.
But I'm still fighting my biology.
Yeah, absolutely. We are wired with, and we've said this before on on this show, that we are wired with all kinds of things that kept us safe as cavemen.
Yeah.
Right. And
when we talked about the biases.
Right. They're just running amok inside us right now. So and I think that all this stuff is part of that. You know, like there's a reason why we're trying to keep up and fit in or be more than someone else or meet some sort of an arbitrary standard we decided in this moment just changed, right? There are reasons for that don't have anything to do with what our society or our culture looks like now. Our brains are wired for that, and very often that can be traced back to survival. But it's not needed anymore, and it's not working really for us anymore. Think about that drive to keep up and improve, and those feelings of not being good enough, and how much stress and anxiety and depression and problems that causes for us as human beings, and how much time is lost and wasted on those efforts, when if we could embrace the things that are enough, would we then be happier and healthier?
Well, could we stop the internal battle?
Yeah, I mean, I think we could certainly give it a fair fight.
Yeah.
Did we ever stop that? I don't know.
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I mean, how do I get to a state of enough?
Yeah, I
I'm
really
enough.
think it's just, evaluating
It's
it.
like in practical terms, evaluating it,
and
analyzing
just forcing you to leave off anything that sounds like comparison.
Yeah.
What would make, going back to the simplified example of the meal, what makes food enough? Doesn't taste bad, right? Tastes okay. The quality is good. I'm not going to get sick.
You're clearly
right?
not Italian.
Right?
It's like,
No, but again, taking all of that out of it, right? Like just saying what's enough.
So strip away who you are.
No, just what's enough, not what's the best, right?
Yeah.
Just what's enough.
Yeah.
Now, when all that is said and done, do I want more garlic? Right? Is it because I feel like I have to have that or the dish isn't good? No, it's because I like garlic, right? And I want that, right? That's more. More is not bad, but enough is the good quality. The portion is enough. It's going to sustain life. It's going to, it's not going to make me sick. Like, that's the measures of enoughness. So I think, are we ever going to get to a place where we're just sort of walking through the meta going, oh, this is enough? No, right? But this, like everything else, is a tool to help us fight against that urgency.
You can use that. Another simplified thing, but you can use that like Sadie scale where it's like, I'm hungry, I'm satisfied, I'm full, I'm overstuffed.
Right. This is the best thing ever. This is just okay. This is enough. This is not enough.
So where
this
do my
bad.
shoes fall on this continuum? Or where do I fall as a human being? Because that's what this is really about, is accepting.
Yeah.
Accepting me.
Am I perfect? Am I doing everything? Am I killing it? Am I knocking it out of the park, right? Or am I doing, really well, better than expected, above average? Am I doing enough? Am I okay?
Yeah.
Right? Am I deficient in some way and legitimately need to work on that? Not because of some comparison, but because it's not enough. Or am I failing or am I poor? I love that idea of using that scale.
The little scale, 3 or 4 points.
And I also don't think that this idea of enoughness is this sort of like permanent all the time state. I think it's a tool.
No, that's tiring.
It's just as exhausting as trying to keep up, right? But when we're feeling the rat race, I feel like this gives us permission to sort of step off the treadmill and go, you know what?
Let me evaluate this.
This might just be enough.
Yeah, because if you're striving for perfection
in every area,
in every single thing all the time, we've got that wellness wheel we talked about in the past. I think we're going to be like ba-boom, 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 because everything's off balance.
And I love that idea. And what I'll say as sort of a closing thought is, going back to the parenting example, right?
Yeah.
Can you identify areas where maybe there was more potential? I didn't know you when your kids were little, but I bet you were killing it with the love. Right?
Yeah.
So it's like, what were the categories that were off the charts? And then was the big picture then enough? And I think when we're looking at things like career, like our relationships, like parenting, like education, like those things, affluence, those things that we're always sort of striving to be better and more, and we look at it through that lens, we may find enoughness and some peace in that. And I think that's kind of the goal, is all this stuff moves us towards a greater peace.
Yeah.
If you are struggling, as always, with something that feels beyond this, true self-esteem issues, self-worth, feeling like everything you're evaluating is not enough, that I assure you is likely not accurate, and there are resources out there for you. Again, we'll continue to put the number on the bottom of the screen in most of these episodes, because if this is not enough for you to help with something you might be struggling with, give Meridian a call or any resources in your community, and you're not alone. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for listening to The Brain Factor. Joy and I are so thrilled to be having these needed conversations. We'd love to hear your feedback on this episode, so if you could drop a comment or leave a review with your thoughts or any requests that you may have, it would be appreciated. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Living a healthier and happier life starts with one step, and we're excited to be on this journey with you. Until next time.